So fundamentally, why am I a MGTOW man? Because I don't want to get married, that's why. Now, why don't I want to get married? Because, these days, in my opinion, the juice, it's simply not worth the squeeze. So when I say the juice ain't worth the squeeze, it means that it fails the cost-benefit analysis. Put simply, marriage for me as a man provides little to no benefits, especially when weighed up in comparison with the cons, with the negative aspects. Now that's the really quick 30-second summary of the whole shebang, but I'm going to give you a bit more detail than that and go explore some of the things in society in general, men's issues in general, and relate that back to why I'm MGTOW personally. I think the best place I can really start to present an overall picture is the fundamental operating system of society. Just like a computer, you had the Windows 95, you got the Macintosh, the Android, the iOS, the Linux. The operating system we're using these days is much different than the one we used in the past. To put it simply, a way Warren Farrell puts it, which is excellent, is, we're marriage 2.0 now. We used to be all about survival. And marriage, it had the terms and conditions that were good for a life of survival in the operating system of survival. But now we're not living that way, and things have become a lot more complex and a lot more convoluted. Now, the specific model we used in the past, the survival model, is, men have most of the responsibility and we have most of the privilege. So, the man goes to work, he risks his life, he spends his time against the elements, and then he gets money for that, right? And the woman stays home, so she's got less responsibility and less authority. This is the patriarchal system. Now, what happened was we experienced a massive increase in the quality of living through technological development, rapid technological development. And the lady said, hey man, I guess we don't really have to use this kind of outdated model anymore, the patriarchy. And we don't want to be stuck at home, we're bored, and we want to be like you guys, we want to go to work. And the men were like, oh, and that's true, we probably don't have to do it that way anymore. And there's a lot of responsibility for us. Maybe, we could share it. Guys could go to work and we wouldn't have to work as much anymore. We wouldn't have to risk our lives and all that. And yada, yada, yada. Well, so I thought that was a pretty good deal, right? Equal rights for all. You switch it up, right? You switch it up. So be it a new way of doing things, a new order, a new model. It wouldn't just be men stuck with all the responsibility. Men would hand over some of their privilege, their entitlements to women, and in turn, men's responsibilities would be diminished, decreased, and women, by taking some of that privilege away from men, their trade-off would be that they would increase some of their responsibility. Now, in reality, that's not quite what happened, is it? Basically, equality didn't really happen. Female empowerment happened, which means they want the good shit. They got the good shit, and they got rid of their gender roles. They didn't really have to abide by that. But what happened for men? What was there no men's liberation? Of course, apparently we didn't need it because men were the oppressors and so on. So anyway, what happened is, women got some privileges, and did men get to decrease their responsibility? Not really. The most infamous specific example I can give here is the Equal Rights Amendment Act, where Equality Act in America, where these feminists were given equality. They said, you get all this, you get that. You get to sign up for the draft and be just like men. They said, we don't really want that, do we? We reject that. We don't want the responsibilities of men. But hold on, you said that you're going to take a trade-off. We get the privileges. We'll take some of the responsibility off your shoulders. But that was never what it was about, was it? Now, there are many, many specific examples I can give you. I can go on and on about all the ways, things in society have changed, but the fundamental reason why I'm MGTOW, why I don't want to get married, is because that society wants men to enter into marriage. They want them to make a commitment, and as Schopenhauer says, entering into marriage is to double one's responsibilities, and to half his privileges. It certainly is the case today, perhaps even more so than that. And so a modern man, when I enter into the marriage contract, the institution of marriage, I am expected to fulfill my traditional masculine role. I am expected to live a life of obligation. Now, that it could be an argument that in the past that would be fine when it was the yin and the yang. You know, the man had his obligation and the woman had her obligation. But at this age of, you know, female empowerment, female entitlement, so-called woman's liberation, you're still expected to fulfill that role, meet your obligations, be a utility for society. But the women, they're just meant to be, I don't know, free and liberated, and they don't have to do that traditional thing because that would be, I don't know, misogyny. And it also doesn't help that, you know, I know that if I have any problems, like for example, my wife calls the police and says I'm hitting her even when I'm not, there's no one who's got my back, you know. At the end of the day, you're a man, you're alone. It's like the world says, you know, when you laugh, the world laughs at you, and when you cry, you know, well, whatever. Now, I would see entering into a marriage contract nowadays for a man to be a form of self-harm. It would be like these obese people in the Western countries eating themselves to death slowly. And marriage is on par with that for me. Well, I see what's happened, you know, over the last 30, 40 years. I see that this myth, call it, you know, the myth of feminism or the myth of patriarchy, has been created. They've told us that men, we have hated women. We hate women. We treat them terribly. We treated them terribly back when we had all the power, or before, I guess, the technology or the entitlement. So we always like hitting them and mistreating them and raping them, because, you know, all sex is rape under the patriarchy, according to some feminists. But so yes, women were oppressed. This is complete bullshit. This is imagination. This isn't fucking imagination. The fact is that life was hard for everybody back in the day, in the operating system of survival. If women were oppressed in the home, you know, being shielded from the woes of the world outside, the elements, you know, you have to cook and you clean and so on. You pop babies out. That's not, you know, that's painful. But was it really a free ride for men? Were men all going into their towers and smoking cigars and, you know, having chats about how they're doing a great job keeping the woman down? Not really. You know, things weren't that good for men 100 years ago either. You know, your woman died in childbirth. Everyone got fucked over. You know, the men, you get your arm chopped off at work, at the lumber mill. You know, you're in the fucking coal mine, and you know, it wasn't easy for anyone. This idea that women were oppressed, yeah, maybe women were oppressed, but they were oppressed by nature. Okay, men were oppressed too. Men and women, they bonded together to survive, and maybe they oppressed each other in a way, but that was the what was the opportunity cost of that? It wasn't as good. So it's really disgusting that this historical narrative have been created to justify a lot of things that happen in modern society. And what really happened because of that is we called power in men was really a form of powerlessness, you know. The fact that you had to get up and go to work, to risk your life, provide for your family, or go to war, and so on. It's not really a kind of power to me. That's not power, that's powerlessness, you know? Just like, for example, you know, women were objectified in the past. They're viewed, their sexuality and their reproductive capacity was, you know, their most valuable, I guess, talent or object, and they were reduced to it. You know, they were reduced to it. But in the same way, you know, men were reduced to being success objects and utilities, disposable utilities. So no one really won there, really, in the end. And now, to a much greater extent, women have the opportunity to step outside of that role. They can go to have a career. They have a lot of reproductive rights. They can choose to use a pill, condom, abortion, dumpster baby, adoption. If they want to keep the child, they can be a strong, independent single mother and use the child support payments from the biological father or whoever she sperm-ducked or trapped into taking care of it. And at the same time, alongside this, a woman's sexuality in modern times is certainly not a form of powerlessness. If anything, it is a form of power that she definitely has over a man. Think for a moment, you're back in the jungle like 50,000 years ago, right? And let's say you're a woman. You're pretty hot, you got a few skills and shit, but life is pretty fucking hard, man. You don't have the supermarket, you don't have cars and trains and all that, cell phones, Instagram. So, your most powerful tool you had to live was your attractiveness, your beauty, your youth, your fertility, your sexuality, your reproductive capacity, and you had to use that to get the best life possible. That was your ticket. And then you had to be careful, which man you select. You want to make sure that he falls in love with you and shit, so that he doesn't, tap and gap, hit and run. And in a way that could feel a bit, demeaning, or it would make you feel a bit insecure sometimes. You had sex and got pregnant, and there's no one to help you. You're in the fucking jungle, right? And you think about it, it's interesting, women are considered the gatekeepers of sex. It's very easy for them to get sex, but in a natural environment, it's also pays a higher penalty if they get pregnant from a man and he's not committed. And on the other hand, it takes a lot of more work for a man to get sex, but he can pretty much tap and gap, and he can choose whether or not he wants to commit, and his commitment will be the difference between the survival, the death of that offspring, or the mother of that offspring. Therefore, he's a gatekeeper of commitment. Now, arguably, these two dynamics are somewhat in balance, these reproductive dynamics. Actually, it's kind of in favor of the man, because, well, it's a lot easier to get a woman to have sex with you compared with, say, getting a man to commit to a baby for 18 years, if you know what I'm saying. And arguably, back in the day, a couple thousand years ago, feudal kind of society, the bargain that struck would be some kind of happy medium. The man, the man wants to have sex, the woman wants to be loved and have commitment. So they kind of exchange it with each other, and that way no one gets fucked over, and both people are kind of make a compromise. They both kind of get their needs met. They're both kind of unhappy, but no one gets fucked over at the expense of another too much. But there could be another situation, and that is the situation today. I think one of the things that feminism has sought to do for women is create the perfect environment for women at the expense of men. This is only really possible in today's day and age, the last 50 years of technological advancement. Think about that woman in the jungle. There's checks and balances on her behavior, and there's checks and balances on her behavior in a state of, say, feudal society as well. But wouldn't it be great if, say, you had sex, but you could eliminate any chance of being pregnant, pretty much? Well, we have the contraceptive pill, we have condoms, IUD, injections for that. You get your tubes tied. That these things have been available for women quite a long time now. But what if I did get pregnant and I didn't want it? Or what if I wanted to get pregnant but couldn't find a man who's willing to commit? It would be hard for me to look after that baby and have enough resources to provide for it without a man, i.e. be a strong, independent woman. If only there was some system I could have at my disposal to ensure that no matter what happened, I would have the resources required to bring that baby up, man or no man. And we have that now. It's called welfare, and it's called child support payments, mandatory child support payments. When you take that woman in the jungle or in the feudal society, for various reasons, she's interested in getting married, getting a man to commit to her. But still that comes with some risks for her, right? What if she doesn't like him anymore, doesn't love him anymore, she wants to move on? She won't have access to, the resources anymore, for example. Wouldn't that be just great if, I could even if I'm not with my husband anymore, I've been together for a year or two. I'm not really into it, but I really don't really want to give up, the house, the car, the bank account. If there's any way I could just divorce him, disassociate from him, but still keep some of his shit, wouldn't that be great? Again, this is what we have today. This is, the divorce settlements and the alimony, vagina money. Here's another one that would cross the mind of women back in the day. I got a bit passionate, a bit lusty, and ended up having sex with this guy out of wedlock, and that would be a big taboo. And I sure wouldn't like that to get out to my family, my friends, and they would, want them to think I'm a slut and slut shame me. Wouldn't that be good if I could just make some accusations without any proof, and that would automatically deflect the blame with me, and people would think that the man was guilty, no innocent until proven guilty, reputation destroyed. Wouldn't that be nice? Well, that's what we have today. We have this false accusation epidemic. Now, hopefully by now you're starting to see a trend. Are you seeing the trend here? Are you seeing the pattern? Women want things to change. Well, they want things to change in their favor. They want to be empowered, and they want men to be stuck in the same old situation they always were. Obligations, if not more obligations than they had previously. You see, women want gender parity. They want to remove the gender wage gap, which is a bullshit myth anyway. It's a lot of single men and women do achieve similar pay, and yet, you want to break that tradition, but you want to keep the tradition of the man paying for the date. It's such a fucking massive thing. You want your cake, and you want to eat it too, okay? You want all the benefits, you want to have your privileges, but you don't want any responsibility. You basically want to take all the privilege in the world and have that for women. You want all the responsibility in the world and have that for men. You want to get shit, you don't want to pay for it. This is the overarching theme of gender relations today. This is all these things that are happening in society. They affect us in our upbringing and our behavior, our attitudes, our mind, and all of these different patterns. It's like they're indented in the brain of the woman today, and inevitably any relationship and even just a plain old interaction you have with women these days, some of this shit is gonna pop up. Okay, it's gonna pop up. All of these outrageous expectations and attitudes and beliefs, and the contradictory natures of them. I want a strong man who's quite aggressive but also sensitive, and I want a man who's rich but doesn't care too much about money. You know what I'm talking about. See, the fucked up thing is, man, when you say this, a lot of guys, you'll connect with it. You can see bits and parts of it. You're like, that's kind of true. But you say some shit like this in society, and people just get their panties in their twist. They're like, oh no, what are you talking about, mate? You're fucking crazy. And you kind of, because really we have been taught, quite wrongly been indoctrinated, you have to explain. I have to explain this shit so rigorously for you to actually understand what I'm talking about, right? Because, you got to fit all these parts of the puzzles together, right? So it all ultimately boils down to is all these things have happened, and what it means is the general state of women these days. It just means that even though it's biologically ingrained for men and women to be attracted to each other, to want to have a relationship and so on, it's just becoming less and less feasible, less and less viable as the day goes by. Although I might be happy in a romantic relationship, the way things are now, I certainly am happier being single. Now, I know you hear that a lot. You hear that a lot from a woman. They say, I'm like a fish without a bicycle or whatever, can be single and all that. But ultimately, you find that women, part of their life scheme is to marry and settle down, have commitment. Although, their standards might be set unrealistically high. And hey, most likely, at least in the environment we're in today, probably my standards are unrealistically high, because I just want a woman who's not, you know, a toxic bitch who's gonna fuck me over. Okay, I think that's enough for now. Those were my comments and criticisms. But it's just a stream of consciousness thing there. I want to get a bit off my chest. And although that certainly is not the entire picture there, I think that'll give you at least a decent glimpse into why I have the mindset I have, why I don't want to get married, why I identify as a man going his own way. Yeah, cool.